We are now 354 days away from the midterms. The government is officially open, and the House picked up right where they left off with the Epstein files. A vote is expected next week on a measure forcing the Department of Justice to release them. And several Republicans are considering defying Trump and voting in favor of making the documents public. Politico reports, quote, the fresh wave of chaos has knocked the administration on its heels. A senior White House official insists that the latest Epstein document release is nothing more than annoying. But for the second day in a row, the president did not take questions after a signing event. Highly unusual for this president. Adding to the pressure on him, a new AP poll shows that only 33% of Americans approve of his handling of the government. That is down from 43% back in March. Even more significant, 68% of Republicans approve of his handling of the government. That number was 81% in March. Meanwhile, Democratic Congressman Eric Swalwell was referred to the Justice Department for a potential criminal probe over alleged mortgage fraud. If you are keeping track, he is now the fourth Democrat facing mortgage fraud allegations. All right, now let's get started with the leadoff panel this evening. Peter Baker is here, chief White House correspondent for the New York Times. Daniela Diaz, a congressional reporter for Notice. And David Drucker, senior writer at The Dispatch. Daniela, what have you been hearing from Republicans? What should we expect ahead of this vote next week, potentially?
Stephanie, it's finally happening. It's been weeks and weeks and weeks of this news cycle that Republicans have repeatedly tried to dodge. And it seems like Speaker Mike Johnson is very prepared to put this on the floor next week in an effort to really make clear that he knows that he can't avoid this, as he's tried to avoid repeatedly, as we've seen them try to do procedurally, not to have any sort of amendments to release for a vote to release the Epstein files. So now it's going to happen. We expect it to happen early next week. And we expect a lot of Republicans to vote for this. I talked to countless Republicans last night during this vote to reopen the government, asking them different swaths, different factions of the conference, asking them if they would support this measure, and a lot of them were really open to it. I do think we're going to expect dozens of Republicans to reach across the aisle on this largely Democratic measure. Of course, 4 Republicans supported it, but the Trump administration clearly not wanting this to happen. We saw in the news cycle they were calling Lauren Boebert, they were calling Marjorie Taylor Greene, trying to really convince them not to be part of this, but it's going to happen. To be clear, it still needs to go through the Senate, but if there's a lot of Republicans that support this in the House, it's going to be really hard for the Senate to ignore this.
Not just calling Lauren Boebert, bringing her to the White House, to the Situation Room. I can only imagine those conversations. David, everything that Daniela just laid out, and the Washington Post wrote about it today. The Epstein files is the one issue that consistently splits Donald Trump, not just from Republicans on the Hill, but from his actual base. What are they saying now?
Well, look, I think it's clear that the president fanned the flames of a fire that he has lost total control of. And it's rare, so rare, as we've talked about before, that House Republicans and Senate Republicans, and we'll see what happens next, but it's so rare that House Republicans defy the president in this Congress. And so to see where this is headed is really rather remarkable. Now, it'll be interesting to see exactly how big of a vote House Republicans give this in the House. But, you know, what we have seen is that this is one of those few topics where the president's base and a lot of Republican voters generally are more interested in having these files released than they are in protecting the president. And what's, interesting here is we don't know for sure that the president really has anything to worry about. I mean, some of these emails that have come out are problematic and they look, they're potentially a little embarrassing. But is it really that big of a deal? Maybe we'll find out that it is. But the point I'm making here is that the president is the one making everybody think that there's a there because of the way he's worked so hard to try and quash this. And number one, he's now a victim of events rather than dictating events. Even if you didn't like anything he was doing for the first 6 months of his presidency, he was in control of almost everything in Washington. And now he is a victim of events, and he has political problems on top of it because of the economy and how voters view his management of the economy.
Then I'm getting to Peter, but then David, tell me how right-wing media is covering.
The President of the United States is going through what we Gen Zers call a legendary crash out. He is manically posting on Truth Social, attacking Republicans within his own party. He's attacked the marriage of multiple Republicans, people like Thomas Massey in Congress. And now other Republicans are coming out saying, sir, you shouldn't be attacking the marriages of people within your own party. Remember, all of this was catalyzed by a massive dump of emails between Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and other journalists like Michael Wolff. And, the dump only happened because Democrats released a handful of emails. Democrats said, look at these multiple emails. They're kind of weird. And the Republicans said, you're missing a bunch of context. There's over 20,000 emails. So they released all of them. They dumped all the emails. And as people have gone through them over the past 48 to 72 hours, the emails have gotten worse and worse. Rumors of Donald Trump doing sexual acts with Bubba, who is Bill Clinton for some reason. There are other things. There are emails of Jeffrey Epstein insinuating that Donald Trump had his nose pressed up against the glass watching young girls swimming. Really damning stuff in these emails. It's no wonder why Donald Trump is crashing out and starting civil wars within his own party. He's called Marjorie Taylor Greene, quote, Marjorie Traitor Greene, is a disgrace to our great Republican Party. Dude, he was posting this at like 7 or 8 a.m. DC time. This dude just wakes up and is fueled off of spite and rage all day. When it was 8 a.m., I was making my coffee and I was getting ready. I was listening to some music. Donald Trump wakes up and is immediately just like, Marjorie Traitor Greene. He then reposted his own post of him withdrawing his support and endorsement of Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. I read this in previous videos, but, essentially he just goes off on her. Then he said 2 hours ago, again this morning, quote, lightweight Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Brown, green grass turns brown when it begins to rot, betrayed the entire Republican Party when she turned left, performed poorly on The Pathetic View, and became the rhino that we always knew she was. Look how petty this dude is. He's making fun of her appearing on the show The View, and he's calling Marjorie Taylor Greene Marjorie Taylor Brown because apparently green grass turns brown when it rots. He's losing his spark when even his nicknames aren't hidden the same as they used to. Not that he should ever be coming up with nicknames as the President of the United States, but at least they used to have a little bit of spark to them. At least they used to spark a little bit of controversy. What the hell is this?
The reopening of the government has only just been completed, but Congress has already returned to one of the main controversial points, the Epstein document, which has been awaited for a long time, right? This revival for trust indicates how much the topic has infiltrated both political sides. Not only is a fight for transparency, but also a trial of the executive branch's power over its party. The timing is critical. Public and knowing with the government is increasing, and every high new occurrence seems to be of more significance than it would have been a few months ago. Even the most uninterested audience can feel that this topic is not just about the document but is much broader. For the majority of GOP representative, the vote which is going to happen soon is a rare clash where they have to choose between supporting the parties to management and giving in to the demand from the voters for the complete truth. This is not a vote that can be easily missed or pushed into a corner of the procedure, whether the member are quite clearly indicating that their prospective political danger in going against the demand for the transparency. That one factor alone is indicative of the change in the power structure inside the Capitol Hill. The time has come to ask if the backing will be so much that it will be able to create expectations for the senators who has been trying to stay away from the issue. The White House has further complicated the situation with its reaction. The administration decisions to treat the renewed interest as a non-event has, in fact, around even more curiosity particularly among voters who are already skeptical about the opens of the institution. When the ratings are down, even small decisions such as dodging media inquiries assume greater significance. The public may not regard this movement as a scandal,